this fellow here. One of my basic training was finished. They sent me to Halifax and Dartmouth. And I was in that area for quite a while. And then they put me on train patrol. I went from Halifax to Montreal every day. Yeah, at that time, and it was loaded with people. They all carried a passport, and you checked it with the conductor. Well, we had some pretty rough times on the train. Soldiers from the West got mixed up in Sydney and they fought. But so they were going to send them overseas. So they got a train. They smashed all the windows in the train, and they uprooted all the seats. And the conductor, I remember the conductor and I took all the women and put them in the rear car, and then put 2 Canadian soldiers on guard to keep them out of there. But when they got to Rimouski, Quebec, it's in the winter time, they took them off of the train and put their luggage out on the snow and sent them back to Alberta. We had a lot of prisoners of war from Germany that were taken prisoner in the war was, and taken over to Halifax. And from there, they took them to Kingston, Ontario. We used to search them from head to foot, hundreds and hundreds of them. And they were only too glad to get out of the war. And I worked with the Mounties a lot. I liked it. I went out with them every night. Then I worked with the city police in Halifax. And I due to my size, I guess, and weight, they picked me all the time for night patrol. And we had lots to talk about when I went with them. We had a slingshot, they called it. It was made out of lead, and you drop it up in your sleeve to there, and it was on a leash, and all you had to do was do it like that, and you had it in the palm of your hand, and give it a whack of that, and that was no more drinks. Liquor store, you were only allowed a bottle a month. And when you went into the liquor store, it was stamped. So that's all you got. And the taxi drivers in Halifax were going crazy for us to take liquor back from Montreal on and give it to them, and they'd sell it for $50, $100 out that. After a while, our officers caught on what was going on, and they said to me, I said, if you see Passerino anywhere along the road, arrest him. And he's one of ours, but arrest him anyway, because we know what he's doing. He's taking liquor from Montreal as far as Truro, and the Halifax taxis that go out to Truro to pick it up. And the officers for a while didn't know how he was doing it. That's how he was doing. And he was a Canadian provocateur. I was on the train this day, and who in the hell got on the train with Passerino? I said, I gotta arrest you. I said, well, look, he said, if you take me to Montreal, I got business in Montreal. If you take me to Montreal, he says, you can take me back and get credit for catching me and arresting me. I said, I'll be so foolish. I said, I don't believe that story. You wouldn't be at the train station to come back with me. He said, cross my heart, I'll be there. I took a chance on it. he stuck to his word. He came back, and he came back with me, and I got the credit for catching him and arresting him. For that, they put me in the SI squad. That's what they call special investigation. So I was with a retired army officer. He was a Mountie. So he was pretty strict on us. There was only three of us. So this Sunday, a hot Sunday in the summertime, and the officer came in and he said to us fellas, no, he said, you fellas have to stay in the office all day and answer the phone and blah, blah, blah. So we were sitting there in the sun and a nice warm day. Perfect. We could take an army jeep any time. We could sign it out. We had that privilege. So one of the boys said, why don't we go for a drive? I said, geez, I said, we may meet the officer. No, he says, let's go. So we went out to Bedford. Do you know that area? Mm-hmm. And there's lakes back of all kinds of lakes. So we drove out there. We went. There was a big crowd there. So these two girls came over where we were, and they said, we never got a ride in a Jeep in our life. How about giving us a ride? I said, yeah, sure, jump in the back. And they got in, and we started up the road. And Jesus, who did I see coming but the Mountie? We nearly, well, we couldn't talk, we were scared we were. He stopped, and he said, I'll see you back at the office. Well, we were wondering what was in for it. So he came back to the office, and he started laughing his head off. He said, you fellas look like two little boys that shit yourselves. One occasion with the theft, I was, before I went in the war, I was born with Mrs. McPherson, I think, yeah. She was from Broadcombe, and I went to visit her. So I was sitting in her kitchen, you know, in uniform, and there was a rap came at the door, and she went to answer the door, and he says, sugar was rationed, you know, you couldn't get rationed. He said, do you want to buy a bag of sugar? I'll give it to you cheap. He says, I'm a cook at the military establishment up the road. And he says, I want to make a little extra money. Well, she said, there's an army officer in the kitchen. And she says, I'll see what he has to say about this. Well, he left the sugar and he went up the street fast. And I never seen a guy go so. He knew what he was in for. And what Mrs. McPherson was wondering what happened. And well, she said, what will I do with the sugar? I said, take it in the house. You can use it. And she did, a whole bag of sugar. That she was never so happy in her life. I was there when the war was over and they were all cheering and going crazy, breaking into the liquor store. You could kids going into the liquor store and coming out with a quart of the very best of whiskey and selling it for 50 cents. Yeah. We had a sergeant major that was awful cranky and we didn't like him. And we got him as drunk as all hell. And then beat the shit out of him. The owners of one of the big breweries in Halifax asked 12 Canadian soldiers to barricade the place so to save it. But so I was one of the ones picked due to my weight and size. And we went up there and there were doors looked size you'd see on a barn. And we braced it as well as we could. And we were waiting for the onslaught. And it happened. And I didn't eat for 2 days. I didn't even remove my clothes for 2 days. It was a bedlam from one end of Barrington Street to the other. Every store, the glass was broken. Well, that's kind of an interesting story. He said that she was the prettiest girl that ever came across the street of Council. I was on train patrol then. I went into Montreal. I got off the train and I got a room for myself. This girl came in and she said, I'm from down there too. She said, look, she said, there's a party over where I stay. She said, there's 12 rooms there. And there's 2 girls in every room. And they're having a birthday party for one of them. Would you like to come over? Oh, I was jumping that high. I said, sure, come over. So I was sitting in a Chesterfield, I remember. And this girl came in about 10 o'clock. I said, geez, I said, that's going to be my wife. And I didn't know her name, and I didn't know nothing where she was from or nothing, but her looks. One of the girls that was sitting with me said, don't be foolish, she said, that girl is going home next month to get married. She's going down to Antigonish to get married. She's from Antigonish. I asked this girl, would she introduce me to this girl? And she said, sure, she said, but won't do you much good. I said, well, you better try anyway. So that I did, and by God, we sat down on the Chesterfield. We were talking home and farm, and she was very, very interesting. When it was over, I said, how about a date tomorrow night? I said, we'll drop into that restaurant downtown, have a coffee, and we'd talk. Oh, she said, I love that. Geez, I figured I'm making headway. I met her, and we had the coffee, and she was saying, I said, what about this marriage due you're talking about? Well, she said, the fellow I'm married, she says, I like him, but I don't love him. Well, I says, do you love me? Oh, every inch of you. So, by geez, I figured I had her made. So we had another date in a week's time, and we started talking very serious. And she started to cry. I said, what does meaning God making you cry? She said, I was supposed to get married next week to another guy from Antigonish. She said, but I can tell you, she said, it was a marriage of convenience. She said, I'll never marry him now. Never. I said, would you marry me? I'd marry you tomorrow. Good enough, I said.